Hello, hello, hello. It's Radio Free Wall Street, and it's 5 o'clock New York time, and we are here. Now, this one is a tough show for me. Okay, it changed. And this is where your personal prejudices and life experiences sometimes get in the way, and I'm freely admitting that. And let me explain. They have passed, the Supreme Court said that states are free to set up sports gambling, okay? And there was always a way around it that if it was educational or tricky this or tricky that these sports bettors are getting away with it. And my online gambling experience goes back from when they started it. I was in Gibraltar when a sports gambling center run by some of the originators, some of the big ones, was setting up there. And I got pitched on investing in it. And it was obvious that it was going to be a big winner. In fact, it was and is. It was obvious that the people who were setting up really knew what the hell they were doing. It was brilliant in its presentation, and it was alluring. And I said no, okay, even though it was a chance to get on a ground floor. Well, later became a multi-billion-dollar business. But there's some businesses you just can't get into, okay, and gambling's one of them. And maybe I should tell you why. I grew up in New York, and gambling's a big part of that world. From the guys down the street that had the numbers a game that was played to the sports book and the betting slips. And gambling's a big thing in the city, okay? And I had an uncle. And my uncle was a sharp guy. But he was a hopelessly addicted gambler, okay? He gambled at Hawthorne on the horses. He gambled at the poker games. He gambled the numbers. He gambled the sports book. Everything there was to gamble on, he gambled on. And he always lost. He lost houses, and he lost what was a very formidable inheritance from my grandfather. And he pissed it away to nothing. And I can remember, as I was growing up, he'd be in trouble, and my grandfather would come and bail him out. And sometimes he was dealing with some pretty unsavory characters, and I'm sure you can put the pieces together there. So it was a very difficult situation. He always owed a lot of money, and he couldn't stop gambling. And I can remember that he was a big sports bettor. And for me, I never did like sports. I mean, I can reveal a little bit about myself. I don't like movie theaters. I don't like crowds of people. I'm not tribal in any way. I can remember being taken to Yankee Stadium. Was all excited when my cousins and Willie Mays was there and Mickey Mantle, the greats. I could give a shit less, okay? I was so bored. I can remember the Super Bowls where everyone would be around the TV to watch it. I can remember being taken to an Army-Navy game because I had a cousin who was at West Point. I remember being taken to a game because another cousin was playing in it, okay? And I hated it. And it was just unbelievable, the amount of money that people spent on these things. I remember when Atlantic City first opened up, and the first casinos there, and we got passes and comps and all that stuff to go to it. And I remember the slot machines and people sitting there pouring their money in them. I can remember the roulette wheels. And when I was there, I was always horrified about the money going down those little holes. My problem is that as I travel the world, gambling's big in Japan. They have those little machines. In England, sports book and betting parlors are all over the place. And I'll tell you a story. I was in outside of London. I don't remember the town, and I don't remember why I was there, but I was staying at some hotel. And across the street from the hotel was a really nice park, and the kids were little then. It's in the park, and there's a betting parlor there. And I can remember these young guys going in there and betting their money, and lines of them. It was some big sporting event. I don't know if it was a European soccer match or what it was, but a lot of people going in and out of there. And they'd come out and they'd be throwing bottles because they got pissed off because they lost and all this thing. And it was just amazing. And I've just known a lot of people who have lost a lot of money gambling. And it's kind of horrible. And if you've ever known someone's a hopeless gambler, they can't stop. I don't know how recreation is putting your money down a hole. Okay, I almost won. Well, almost doesn't count. So as I've watched the sports gaming go and grow, it's always been a concern of mine, okay? It's part of what you calculate into what you're doing. And the amount of money in casinos are unbelievable. And I've been to most of the big casinos around the world, and I'm one of these guys that goes in there with $25, and most of the time, by the way, leaves a winner, by the way, with very small money. And I've been at the beautiful casino in the south of France. I've been in casinos in Italy. There's a lot of casinos all around the world. For some reason, you end up having to meet people. There's a lot of people I know just like going to casinos. And I can tell you that, especially for the working class people, gambling is a big, big trap. Sports booking is huge numbers. I knew guys that ran the poker machines that were in Kansas City area, okay, for example, electronic betting, and they had to deal with a bartender would pay off and all that. And I've just seen massive gambling and poker games, and I've seen huge amounts of money spent by people. The casino in Monaco, I can remember just... in fact, I'll tell you a story about the Monaco casino. This was during the gold days, so that would have to be in the early 80s. And they had a slot machine there that took Krugerrands. And I remember an Arab sheik at this machine with piles, a lot of security, but piles of Krugerrands that he was popping into the machine like popcorn. At that time, we were probably at, a $700 or $800 an ounce gold. And I've seen some of the big gamblers on Baccarat in some of these games, and it's always been amazing the amount of money they lose. And it's like, I don't understand it. I get a lot more of my money and put it down a hole. In fact, the shooter in Las Vegas that did that piece of work, stories I'm hearing was that he started becoming a big online poker game loser. And that's why he was driven over the edge. At least the story's going around. Now, states in America, as we've reported to, are really desperate for money. And state lotteries are a huge business and a huge source of revenue. And those lotteries and those scratch cards and those kind of things affect the poorest people in society. And I've seen people buy 20 and 30 tickets, I'm sure you have too. And the Powerballs when the jackpots get huge. And I've never bought a lottery ticket, ever. I don't understand it. I just money, And you're talking to somebody that's a professional trader, so, some people have accused me of being a gambler on the stock market and all that, but to me it's not a gamble. So we are now in a realm where we're entering a recession. States are desperate for revenue, and now we are going to have legalized gambling and all kinds of sports books. Now, let me tell you a lot of the problems with that. Believe me when I tell you that shaving points is a big part of the business, and it goes on. And the pitch is very simple. Look, you're going to win the game anyway, but we don't want you to win by over 10 points. And, it has corrupted college football, college basketball, and the sports, and it's a huge problem. If you've ever known any athletes, despite all the blow and go, they normally don't do a good job managing their money, and they're always broke. So you're now adding a huge amount of money to the sport. Now, I can tell you that you have seen in recent years huge amounts of money paid per sport teams. Huge amounts of money. And the deals didn't make any sense until you understood that the fix was in, the day was in when the sports betting would become legal, and that becomes another revenue for these teams. When you allow the gambling to come into the business, the sports change, obviously. And I'm not so concerned about that, although it is an issue. But the other problem you've got when you do this is that you now go to the most vulnerable people in your society, and you make gambling really, really available to them. Let me tell you another story. When the poker gaming people started going online, I knew one of the guys that was involved in the software development. And there were some people from India, by the way. And, obviously the question was, how's it work? And basically, I don't give a shit how much they want to bullshit you. It was a rigged game. Nobody goes home a winner. And I can tell you that the credit card companies love the business because it's very lucrative, and they can get a big fee of it. And then there's a question of whether they were U.S. domiciled and not U.S. domiciled, and all the games get around the rules. Now, you're opening up a whole realm of gambling to a huge number of people who are very vulnerable. And this is going to be a very high burden on society. We talk about the opioid crisis, okay, and that's a catch-all name for basically people who are hopelessly addicted. And it is having a devastating effect in certain stratas of our society, as you know, okay? And like so many things, these vices tend to snag a lot of people at a great cost to society at large. Now, I am a free market person. I really believe in the free enterprise system. I really hate government intervention. But I'm wondering how an unregulated, and it will be unregulated, sports book available online with the convenience of a smartphone is really going to work out. And when I saw the online gaming come and got a look at some of the revenues, I realized that, this put any casino to shame with the revenues they can develop. And I've been to the casinos around the world, and it is just incredible the crowds they draw in, and incredible the take they have. And, you got to go to a casino. Now in America, we're introducing the sports book, and I promise you this will be online gaming, and it will be huge. It'll be one of the bigger businesses that was born today, yeah. And the problem is it'll be on the backs of the poor and the working class people that are living a life of quiet desperation. How many stories do you know, like I do, about people that, got their paycheck and went to the casino and didn't have anything to bring home? How many lives have been destroyed by gaming? I can't begin to tell you, but it's huge. And it's been a curse of mankind for a long time. But now that it is moving mainstream, I'm afraid the damage being done to society is going to be huge. Remember, I started out this discussion saying that I'm certainly not open-minded about this, and I'm certainly prejudiced about this because, I had an addicted family member who it was a childhood experience. I mean, it was every few months there was a story. Sometimes in whispers you heard as a kid, but as I grew up, about what he lost this time, or how much money was involved, or what had to happen. And it was disruptive to his family. His wife eventually left him over it. And his kids hated him. And I've seen the story repeated over and over again. And I think we're opening the Pandora box on this gambling thing. And let me tell you why. The Internet and smart devices has changed a lot of things, okay? I love the technology. Obviously, we have, websites, and we deliver our product through the Internet. And we have handheld devices, and we have, iPads, and we have phones, and we have the Internet, okay? And we host a number of websites that provide what is basically our product. And we've spent a lot of money in development, and a lot of money in servers, and a lot of money in programming, and just, to do what we do. And we do a really good job of it. And it can be such a blessing. I'll give you an example. When I got very, very ill with a septic infection, and then I had my entire body changed, and I had huge weight gain, it was eventually the internet, and eventually constant glucose monitoring that let us develop this diet system and this diabetes system that is avant-garde and changing lives we wouldn't believe. And it's only because there's a smartphone, and only because of the internet, and only because of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth that this miracle can happen. You know, we can capture data on a constant basis. We can monitor markets around the world. We can monitor people's blood glucose level. We can monitor automobile performance real time. I mean, the miracle of the processor and the internet and data capturing and data analyticals is truly changing the world. I mean, we're digitizing everything. If it isn't from Bitcoin to just, you know, everything we know about, okay, high-frequency trading. And eventually, you know, medical is going to go online. But the problem is that you also have the curse of that. And part of that is pornography that's available in copious amounts and some pretty gruesome stuff to pretty vulnerable people. And so there's a price we're paying on all this, if you understand what I'm saying. And sometimes I wonder if the technology isn't ahead of the people. You know, in other words, we haven't grown fast enough as people to shelter ourselves. You know, people are addicted to, you know, YouTube videos, and people are, you know, can't go to sleep without checking their emails all through the night and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I do a lot of that. But what I'm saying is that we're changing social behavior with YouTube and all this. Now, it's hard to lose a lot of money on Facebook, okay? But now, if you can let your mind roll into a situation where you have the Facebook, Google Analyticals, and all of this gambling using these huge social media outlets, and by God, they will. And, of course, under state sponsoring, right? That's another thing that gives it an air of legitimacy. Remember, there are a lot of gambling sites that are basically underground and illegal, okay? Now, imagine when it becomes a wide-open ball game. Pun intended, ball game, remember? And how does that square with society? And I propose to you that my great fears I've been following is, remember, very early on when they had the first internet gaming company that really went big, I was there. I actually, like I said, I was in their facility. I met some of the principals. I saw some of the confidential numbers, and they were staggering, okay? In fact, I still have an NDA on that, so I can't give you the percentage losses and how much they get from a potential customer, but it would shock the shit out of you. And knowing that, and then knowing, you know, family experience, and then knowing, you know, world experiences, you know, Macau, I've been to Macau. I've seen these gambling things just go crazy, you know, the mahjong parlors, and I mean, there are people bet on how soon, which pigeon's going to be the first one to shit. They bet on rat races. I mean, you know, gambling is just pervasive. But here's the problem. Now that we tie it on to an online media, you get in their Facebook analyticals, they know the people, know who they are, know what they watch. Just imagine what gamers can turn into with gambling, okay? Just imagine what Facebook looks like with horse racing and sports betting and just all kinds of targeted to very vulnerable people. I mean, let's face facts. Let me back up. I can tell you, without going too far, that the online gaming have a lot of information about the people who are coming in. They have a pretty good feel for how much money they can lose, credit card limits. I mean, they have pretty sophisticated ways of knowing. Now, imagine coming into a situation where, with the huge data files that exist on all people, psychological profiling, knowing their search history, medical, having access to their debt records, having access to their credit information, having access to bank accounts, credit lines, cash balance available. Oh my God, imagine the damage you could do. And so what we are doing is opening this monster that's tying. Let me explain. I want to be very clear here. It's one thing when the guy goes into the casino and he hands them the money and they give him the chips and he goes and games it, okay? But casinos have gotten pretty sophisticated in knowing their clients, right? But that is not on a mass scale, okay? Casinos have, they know if you got money, and then they'll fly you to Vegas free, and they put you in the swanky suite, and all that, which we all know about. But that is not on a mass scale. Now imagine this mass marketing where every smartphone, every iPad, every computer becomes a casino. Now tie that with social media, with all the information we've learned these people gather on us, and you have now created a juggernaut. You created a monster, and I predict that gaming will become a major crisis and a source of major financial losses like never seen before. Now, I understand there's the free market aspect of this and all that, but I have a problem that the technology is far ahead of very vulnerable people. And I want you to just think about all the things you've learned about Facebook and Google and all of these websites that collect massive amounts of data, only too eager to have, gaming ads. And are you soft for horse racing, or do you like car racing or motorcycle racing, or do you like football or baseball or basketball, or you're all season man hockey? You imagine the sports book that's gone into college booking and all these, sports weeks they have in these extravaganza playoffs. And now imagine tied to that all of the analytical that's available on the internet. And all of a sudden, you've got a monster that has the ability to gather information from you and use it against you. They can explore your weak spots, okay? I remember the Hialeah dog racing, okay? I know people that just were addicted to the things, and the horse racing, with the Hawthorne and the parks there. In Chicago, I had a trading buddy on the floor when we were doing the arbitrage, and he was making money as a floor trader and pissing away as fast as he made on Sportsbook. And they had the sheets, and they had the horse, and the handicap, and the color, and the jockey, and he thought he could analyze it, and it was just amazing. The man lost everything on it. So I can tell you story after story after story about people losing massive amounts of money and people losing their wealth in gambling, and how vulnerable people are, and how addictive it is to many people. And I guess the sadness for me is that was where there were basically primitive tools. Now you can harvest data on tens of millions, hundreds of millions, or billions of people. In the United States, you're going to have sports betting tied to the states, gives it an air of legitimacy. And you know they're going to be smart enough to know how to use the internet. And then you're going to understand how these casinos are going to be able to use data mining. Oh, my God. I mean, there's not a big chunk of money available like there is in gambling. When you're selling someone a book or an internet site, and you're mining in that way, the money is small. But imagine with the value of a customer from acquisition to wipeout, it's a lot of freaking money. And there's a lot of freaking money to identify those people and chase them. And there's a huge database of information available. So we are into the meeting of legalized gambling state by state. And it'll grow like a cancer. And it will change the sports, of course. Okay, the gambling is a curse of any sport, in my opinion. But okay, I'm not, like I said, we're up front. You have to put a gun in my head to get me to go to a sporting event. I just can't stand the shit, and I don't watch it on TV. I don't care about it. I don't know who they are. Don't care about, these sports stars. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when they get back to the gladiators and they're fighting to the death, and then I know I'm dedicated, then I'll probably watch. But until then, I'm not interested. I'm truly not. most overpaid people in the world for chasing balls? Shit. But the scientists trying to discover a cure for cancer can't get funded. But if you can bounce a ball and shoot it through a little hole, shit, you get hundreds of millions of dollars. That's some crazy, in my mind, that's some crazy shit. It just shows, and it's extremely popular. Don't get me wrong. I mean, these guys are earning their money, and they're not getting paid all that money for nothing. I mean, they have a huge crowd appeal and draw. Now, add to that the lure of gambling. Do you realize the pressure the teams are going to be under? Can you imagine these sports heroes, talking about the book and that kind of thing? I mean, it's going to happen. Once it becomes legal, then what's happened is there's now a lucrative end to watching your sports. In other words, you make money off of it. This is going to work out very badly. And this will be a huge burden on society, I want to also add to you. Of course, the states will end up with a tax, but, I've watched the proceeds of lotteries and those kind of things, and the money very quickly disappears, okay? It's amazing how much money the people that run the lotteries for the states skim off of it. And that's a whole other area of how those contracts and deals are made, but it's a slimy business. So we are entering into the realm of sports gambling meets legality meets the internet. And the cost, like I said, is going to be phenomenal. In fact, it's now going to be, in other words, when we look at income numbers and we look at disparities in income and we look at disposable income, well, if you're a merchant or all that, you have now got one hell of a kick-ass competitor. They're going to steal a lot of money out of retail. They're going to steal a lot of money out of consumer disposable. This is going to be a major game changer and something that will have to be considered when you're looking at consumer spending. This changes the game, and it doesn't change in a good way.